Good evening and welcome to this Pasco City Council regular meeting of November 18th, 2024. The city would like you to thank you for being a part of our meetings. The meeting is broadcast here. Obviously it's live. It's broadcast on PSC channel 191 on Spectrum Cable in both Pasco and in Richland. It's streamed on the city's go-to meeting, go-to webinar, YouTube channel, the website, and on the Facebook page. This and previous council meetings are available on the city's website. For those in attendance, we have agendas to my right, that small table. For those who are following along at home, the agendas are available at www.pasco-wa/agenda. And for anyone that would like to submit a public comment or ask questions, they may do so, or submit a comment or ask questions. They may ask the city manager, city clerk, or by using the Ask Pasco app. With that, Ms. Clerk.
Council members Barajas,
Present.
Blaisdell,
Present.
Grimm,
Yes, here.
Harpster,
Present.
Morales,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Milne,
Present.
and Mayor Serrano.
I am here.
Thank you.
With that, let's please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. With that, we're going to roll on to item number 4, which is our consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council. Will be enacted by one motion. Of course, if someone, one of the council members would like separate discussion, such items can be removed for further discussion and placed on the regular agenda further in the agenda. So with that, we've got item A, which is approval of the meeting minutes for November 4th and November 12th. Item B is bills and communications approving claims in the total amount of $4,173,882.52. Item C is resolution number 4523, change order number 10 for wastewater treatment plant phase 1 construction contract with Clearwater. Got resolution, item D is resolution number 4524, project acceptance for East Urban Growth Area Expansion Sewer Local Improvement District number 152, phase 3 project. Item E, resolution number 4525, project acceptance for East Urban Growth Area Expansion Sewer Local Improvement District number 152, phase 4 project. Item F, resolution number 4526, sole source purchase request of LifePak 35 defibrillators. Item G, resolutions number 4527, 4528, 4529, and 4530, accept purchase agreements for work to update Giza Stadium to Major League Baseball standards. And finally, item H, resolution number 4533, office closure to the public for Christmas Eve day. Do we have any discussion before we get a motion? Seeing none?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Got a motion by Milne and a second by Blaisdell. Any further discussion before we get a roll call from the clerk? Seeing none?
Councilmember Barajas,
Yes.
Blaisdell,
Yes.
Grimm,
Yes.
Harpster,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Milne,
Yes.
and Serrano.
Yes.
It passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Clerk. We'll move on to item number 5, which is proclamations and acknowledgements, none listed. That moves us on to item number 6, which is our public comments. Now, the public may address council on any item unless it relates to a public hearing scheduled further in the agenda. This item is provided to allow opportunity to bring items to the attention of the city council or to express an opinion on an issue. Its purpose is not to provide for a venue for debate or for the posing of questions with the expectation of an immediate response. Some questions require consideration by council over time and after the deliberative process with a number of input from a number of different sources. Some questions are best directed to staff, to my right, who may have access to specific information. Citizen comments are limited to 3 minutes, as you'll see by the timer here, by myself. And those with lengthy messages are encouraged and invited to summarize those comments and possibly submit them for later information for consideration by council outside of formal meetings. When you seek to make a comment, if you could please give us your name and your county of residence. With that, we are open for public comment. Go ahead. If you can turn on the mic at the base. Yep, you're good.
Hello, good evening. My name is Maria Rengel. I'm the owner of the restaurant in Lewis Street. I'm just here to say how thankful I am with the council members for coming out and show up for the ribbon cutting and other staff, like other departments like the police officers and other members from other places. I'm so thankful for seeing and feeling the support for the community. And we also have another one the next day on special kitchen that I don't remember the name. So I'm just here regarding to say about that, how thankful I am feeling and seeing the support that you guys give us. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we wish you continued success, hopefully. Do we have any additional public comment for anything outside of the public hearings? Go ahead, Ms. Mahoney.
This is on. Mary Mahoney, Pasco resident. Recently on the news, Animal Control Director Ben Zegan modeled an industrial washer dryer and dishwasher. Also, Mr. Zegan stated we need to see where to put stuff. Exactly. Where does animal control put stuff? Like our tax dollars and our dogs and our cats. With that, Pasco via RCW 42.56, please provide where the $375,000 missing and or stolen by Chambers, Hernandez, and Howard is, as well as the result of the 48 counts of animal cruelty. Also provide the rainy day fund from Animal Control Angela Zeiler. Provide the deleted YouTube video 4119 Pasco City Council meeting with comments by Pasco's Lee Kerr regarding missing animal control funds, the WSU contract, violations of constitutional due process, and more. Provide a list of animal rescues and animal control facilities that provide WSU with research dogs and cats. For that info, call Lee Kerr at 509-735-1542 and WSU President Kirk Schultz at 509-335-4200. Also, WSU sends dog body parts to as far as Japan. Who else receives our dog and cat body parts? Provide Tri-City Animal Control, or as I call it, TRAP, Tri-City Research Animal Provider. Provide animal control's compliance with the minimum standards set forth by the Animal Welfare Act regarding protection of an animal's physical and mental well-being, including but not limited to outdoor dog runs attached to the building. Give them some freedom. Violations of the Animal Welfare Act by Tri-City Animal Control can lead to huge fines as well as more animal cruelty charges by the EPA, the USDA, and the Department of Justice extending to WSU. See recent federal case law. Provide funds for a no-kill shelter and low-cost spay-neuter clinic allocated from our CIP budget. The budget is well over $500 million. Provide a pie chart of funds animal control receives from WSU for providing research dogs and cats to WSU. Also, provide information on a citizens oversight committee regarding animal control and pamphlet information regarding the WSU contract distributed to the public. My records are available. My comments are for the record and to put Pasco on notice.
Thank
Also,
you.
I have records of Bell's journey.
Thank you. Do we have any additional public comments? Okay. Going once, going twice, third time. All right. We'll move on to item number 7, which is our reports from committees and officers. And do we have any verbal reports from our council members, Mr. Grimm?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This last week I attended the Benton Franklin Council of Governments meeting on Friday where we signed off on a EV charging plan throughout the region. Continues to be frustrating, the unfunded mandates though coming down from the state when our infrastructure cannot support that, and even the government looking at charging tolls during peak times, which will also hurt the middle class. Got a really, really good presentation, though, about the history of traffic in the Tri-Cities. One of the most interesting factoids from that was the cable bridge was built in 1978 at a cost of $30 million. And I think about what we're paying as a state, not a city project, but a state project to paint the Blue Bridge at about $33 million, and just how much prices have escalated since then. You know, what it costs to paint a bridge now is what it costs to build a bridge back across the Columbia in the late 70s. So super interesting. Also, you know, road study that came out in 2010 looked at what to do about getting back and forth across the creek, a fourth bridge at Road 68 or a fourth bridge at Road 100, or just building out more capacity within the network that we have already. And of course, the fourth option in that priority order was a bridge across at North Richland. So it was interesting to look at those and begin to continue looking at just the future of building this infrastructure across the region. I also attended the Ben Franklin Transit meeting on Thursday, where I'd like to report that ridership across the network was up 14%. The Fair and Rodeo ridership was actually up 10%, which I know alleviates a lot of congestion up there. And also, Chairman, County Commissioner Will McKay talked about some of their projects that they are doing up at the fairgrounds that will help alleviate some of that added congestion next year. But interestingly enough, our 2 pickup sites here in Franklin County at Hapo Center and at 22nd Avenue were actually both down in ridership over the previous year. So anyways, I was with some of you and staff on the audit call today and the exit audit, and that's all I have to report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Mr. Proud.
Thank you, Mayor. I took a visit down to Pie Sharks last week. Met with the owner, and that was really fun. Really good food. So if anyone hasn't tried it, I highly suggest that. Also went to one of the 2 hearings examiner meetings. I know we don't have anyone who sits on there, but it was just kind of good to be there and listen to some of the issues. Also attended the Chihuahua versus Puyallup football game on Saturday. Riverhawks won, so they'll be playing again this week. Hopefully, in a chance to go to the Final Four. So, if you guys are available, game's at 1. So, and I think that was it. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, it looks like the Hawks smoked them. I mean, 56-14, if I recall. So that's pretty solid.
People were leaving at halftime.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they got some kids to play that don't usually. So, Mr. Mulney.
Thank you, Mayor. I also attended the Mex-American Kitchen, we talked about. Great food, highly recommended. It was a really good time, and I was glad to see so many people there. On Thursday, I did attend the Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting here at the council chambers, and we talked the stuff that's going on in Highland Park, other stuff around the city. Everything seems to be going good. Then I also did the Afghan food soft opening, but I was there after Director Rice and Mayor Serrano left. Very nice people. And then today I did also the audit and with Serrano and Grimm, and just busy week, and look forward to supporting the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Milne. Yeah, I'll just circle back with, I had the pleasure of attending the Mexa opening. Wonderful food. I'll echo that. Really hopefully able to take off and make that a place a success. The Tri-Cities Afghan food, that was solid food too. So if you're at the specialty kitchen, it's a new kind of cultural thing, so that's always good. I had the opportunity to meet with some folks, representatives of HUD, That's Housing and Urban Development Department from the U.S. government. Still kind of weighing our ways around getting more money, which is I always appreciate the city manager and staff looking into that. And I too attended that conference, that audit conference. So busy. It's always fun to be back. It's nice to be back in the saddle and actually hear more often. So appreciate everyone that's picked up slack over the past year. It's been noticed, at least from my end. So I appreciate all you and everything you've done. With that, we'll move on to item number 8, which is hearings and council action on ordinances and resolutions relating thereto. So item 8A, excuse me, is the second public hearing for the 2025-26 operating capitals projects and budgets. Ms. Buckley.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. We are holding our second and final public hearing related to the budget for the biennium of 2025 and 2026. And so I know we've spent a lot of time going through a lot of information over the past month or more. Now, try not to belabor that or repeat things too much, but just for the benefit of a review and people listening online or in the audience. In the current biennium that we're just closing in on concluding, we started our budget planning with a projected reduction of reserves of up to $15 million. Part of that was based on whether potential sales of property occurred or not, and then just planned difference between revenues and expenses for the 2-year biennial period. When we concluded 2023, results were better than anticipated, or at least based on budget, and we had an operating net expense of about $3.2 million, and then after other financing uses and sources, so items like bond proceeds that we'd received or transfers out, those financing elements, the net change in our ending fund balance was almost no change about as compared to the big numbers that flow through the budget, so just $175,000. As far as 2024, looking at activity so far through this year, the expectation is that we could end 2024 with either about breaking even again or up to $3 million deficit. And the things that influence that are fourth quarter sales tax receipts are meaningful, especially with the holidays. We received quite a bit of sales tax related to holiday spending. And then things that are unknown, overtime, and the potential for large maintenance or repair items could influence the final outcome of 2024. As far as both years, we started with that $15 million difference, and based on what I just explained between the 2 years, and they've both benefited of not having as much of a deficit because of a delay in issuance of tax increment bonds, so we didn't have to start paying back that debt service right away, and so that's helped our budget bottom line. And then also we have had less than full employment in departments, so that has been beneficial in having some savings. And then finally, with that awareness, I know that it has come up a couple times about restricting funding and spending, restricting spending and making wise choices. And during this biennial period, knowing that the budget was predicting a big deficit, the city manager's office and staff department across the different funds and departments have been very cautious and tried to make decisions to limit spending. As far as the biennial budget planning that we're working on for the years of 2025 and 2026, since we met last week, we took that information. If you'll recall, there were 3 elements that we asked council direction for, and based on that direction, we've made some changes to the proposed budget, and those items included adding a cost of living increase valued at about $2.9 million for the 2-year period. Reducing savings for vehicle and equipment replacements. We have existing savings, but we just would not be contributing as much to build that savings balance in this next biennium, and that reduces expenses by $1.3 million. And then reducing labor costs associated with potential staffing vacancies, and that impact reduced the budget expense-wise by $5.8 million. So the net effect of those amendments are an improvement in the budgeted or estimated ending fund balance as of December of 2026 by $4.2 million, and would result in an ending fund balance at that time of about $19 million. When we did discuss, these questions last week and got some feedback from council, and also a couple of questions you had asked about the cost of living increases and how is that being handled across the region. And so we did called around, asked some questions, sent some emails, and got feedback that in the Tri-Cities area, the cost of living proposal, I don't think other entities have passed their budgets yet as well either, but is 3%. And then outside our region, there is a little range, so 2.9 to 1%, and our Pasco proposal was for 2%. So that 2% is currently into the proposed budget numbers. And the other question that came up was competition, or having one staffing pool that is kind of pulling from this region, and how would us not having a COLA impact our comparison with our sister cities, and what would the result would be where there were positions, or there are positions that exist where there is a difference between salaries from location to location, that disparity would grow without the cost of living increase. And then it was important to also point out, as you have the potential ordinance and the values of ending fund balances based on budget right now, that best practice for unassigned reserves, so available budget that could be spent for emergencies or cash to augment cash flow needs. For the general fund, that is 60 days of operating reserves, which works out to be about $13 million based on what we have in the budget now. And for utility funds, 45 days of operating expenditures, which is about $5 million. And I want to highlight that these would not be the only reserves that the city would hold from fund to fund. They may vary a little, but often there are debt service reserves and restrictions on special funds that we receive that are set aside and can't be spent for operating expenses. So with those changes that were made from last year, these are the final numbers, or the proposed numbers of both, and I guess starting with what we think at this point in time we would start 2025 as a estimated beginning fund balance. Those numbers, of course, will change based on actuals. And then the two middle column amounts show what is in the budget right now. Budgeted revenues, budgeted expenses, any surplus of revenues or deficit of revenues to cover the biennial expenses, and finally just a mathematical equation of what would be ending if with all those numbers being the same. One item that I want to point out is that of that budgetary spending, $81 million is supported by debt or grant proceeds, and primarily for those construction and capital improvements that are in the budget. One other thing we've talked about a couple times and is important to highlight and remember as we move forward in finalizing this budget and then going into those years of activity and making decisions and evaluating how we move forward or to make some decisions is the city of Pasco, our population, and then the metrics assigned to where we receive revenue with the surrounding communities. And this little chart has been shown to council and provided as part of a presentation in the past, but you can see that Pasco's population is really close to Kennewick and significantly higher than the city of Richland. And so service-wise, we're trying to make sure that we provide the same level of services to our citizens, but revenue-wise, we're lagging some to help support those services. So that's kind of looking forward that delta that we need to solve and discuss and make decisions based on. And then we looked a little further too about statewide, trying to make some comparisons of, well, what are property taxes in different communities across the state, or is there an average or a range? And it is really pretty challenging to narrow that down, and I'm not feeling defeated that I can't get more information, but I couldn't get enough information to come back with those answers for you now. But the rates for collection, I just put a sample there of different cities in the state of Washington, and depending upon how the city provides services, if there's full service city like the city of Pasco and use their general fund to supply essentially all governmental kind of services, or if they have special levies or have other entities support services in their community, it really makes a difference on what the rate impact is for property taxes. And probably one of the best examples that's just very local and we deal with all of us going to the library is Kennewick's library services provided and the funding through Mid-Columbia Libraries, and the funding is received directly by property tax assessment by Mid-Columbia Libraries to the citizens or property owners, whereas in Pasco, that funding is supplied by our general fund, and the dollar value is about $2.7 million, so that has a large impact on our general fund to be able to provide those services. So looking at this coming biennium and then into the future, we're going to need to, and we'll use council's, definitely are desirous of council's input, and we'll spend a lot of time, I'm sure, discussing other tools, like a toolbox of options to how to fund various elements of service the city provides. And some of those options include a transportation benefit district or a metropolitan park district, a levy lid lift, or an EMS levy. Of course, we're just at the very beginning stages of even considering any, but that's information that will come back with more details to council. As earlier in this process, the various departments reviewed many elements about the services they provide and the impact on those services based on the planning that was taking place in the 2025-2026 budget. And so a little time has passed since then, and we wanted to make sure that we had a list that highlighted those items that were not in the budget due to funding concerns. And so I think I didn't want to read through every one for you all, but I did want to make sure that they were highlighted and you had a chance to look at them and provide comments or just remember and be aware as we move into the next budget why there might be elements that we historically have done but would not be providing without a budget amendment in this coming biennium. And then, so now, and I'll give you a moment at the end, of course, to ask questions and provide comments, but the next steps that need to occur in our budget process is we anticipate coming back to council on the 25th, which is next Monday, for approval of our capital, which is the elements that were outlined, those projects in the CIP, and operational budget, which is all this work that we've been doing for the past many meetings. And then we're just staff, and in that time between now and then we will be evaluating budget to actual results for our 2024 year or our current biennium to make sure that we don't need any adjustments or amendments to meet appropriation levels and comply with state law. So, and that concludes the presentation. Just a moment for questions or comments, please.
Thank you. Before we move to our public hearing, we'll hear from council. So, Mr. Harpster.
Yeah, on these last two slides here, budget impacts, I just want to clarify, it says the following items have not been included. So then, for example, removed expenses for annual employee recognition banquet, that's not included, so that is going to stay.
No, sorry, that wasn't supposed to be a double negative. If it was on the list, it's things that aren't in the budget. So no, that's being removed from the budget. Sorry, it wasn't meant to be
On both sides.
a double negative to you.
Yeah.
Apologies.
Just wanted to double check. Thanks.
Mr. Prowse.
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple questions. Can you go back to, I think, the slide, or at the very beginning where it says $649 million with fund balance, the fiscal impact? Can you break that number down? I just want to make sure, like, the common
Is it here?
resident, well, it's in our packet, it's on the first page.
Oh, okay. Let me go back.
You probably don't have it. But anyways,
Oh,
I mean,
I'm
if you
sorry.
break all that numbers down, then I take it that that's with the capital budget included. And
Can I?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
so
go ahead.
sorry that I don't have let me.
so there's that. I just had a couple questions about that. It seems kind of confusing because when we saw the general fund and it's only 79 and so forth, and so it's a smaller amount, but then you put all that stuff together, it makes it like a huge
It-
amount.
Yes, is it the total?
Correct. So
Oh,
if you
okay.
add like the estimated beginning fund balance with the budgeted expenses, then you take out the 27 million, it comes out to that number.
Right. So this is all the funds. So we're
And that's with the capital budget.
right,
Okay.
correct, with the construction budget as well. Yep, all funds, all the special revenue funds. So ambulance, real estate excise tax, all those many funds. I think there's about 25 of them,
Okay.
and then general fund and the utilities and the construction fund. So everything.
Okay. Okay, that clears that up, and I'll make some notes on that.
And council member, when we do the budget book, it'll be more clear and concise too when you have it actually laid out in front of you, and that'll happen after we have the guidance from council. So it does get a little easier to read than the packet and the slideshow. So
On, I think on the 2025-2026 budget, says as budgeted ending fund balance of 19 mil. So is that our reserves?
That's mhm.
Just want to confirm that. And then, did we ever get the amount that we spend on consultants? Did we kind of get that aggregate number?
still working on that. That's trying to be broken out by department so that we can get that back to you.
Okay, appreciate it. That's the only question I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prowse. Mr. Grimm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Buckley. Just hoping you could narrow in back in your comps for the cost of living increases. Of course, kind of a general statement outside of the region. Were those similar sized cities, or are you
It was-
comparing like Washtenaw? or-
No, we reached out to Prosser and Walla Walla, and tried to tried Yakima, but we were unsuccessful to get information from them. So I think it is just Walla Walla and Prosser, just looking for places that people in our region might be employed and travel to and from, and so kind of in the same pool of employees or competition for employees.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, those would be good places to reach out to.
Oh, I guess also at Strichland too. There.
Oh, okay. No, that's
the
another good one.
Tri-Cities are Kennewick and Richland.
Perfect. No, those are, three,
Okay.
good cities to choose from. And, hopefully as, we wrap this up in the next week, either when the public comment section opens up here, the mayor opens up our public hearing, that, we'll hear more feedback. And, as I look through these, I mean, some of the cuts are welcomed, that's what we're hearing, but some of them are, painful, like, proposing freezing a planned traffic unit. Our number one priority should be law and order. And the number one complaint I think a lot of us heard from our constituents last year was the need for more enforcement. So I would hope, we could work with staff and everything and, get that added back in when, some of these things stabilize. And if you'd go to your, the slide about, it was back 2 or 3, about the comparative rate impacts, because I think this is, and you spoke all the way through this and everything, but I think it is really important, for us to see, as you said, we just about have as many people as Kennewick, and let's face it, we're on the verge, we're going to take them over and be the biggest city in a matter of days, if not weeks, or a few months at the most. But yes, our revenue is significantly smaller than theirs, just due to the tax rate. And I know that's an uncomfortable topic for a lot of people, but it is very disadvantageous what we are working through here in Pasco. And ultimately, it's going to be a decision by the voters at that point. But it does put us in a situation where, as you said, the services we provide to our citizens, who are more than the rest of the people in the region, it is impacted. And, I appreciate you showing that slide, because it really does make that loud and clear. So thank you again for your presentation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Seeing no further lights, I'm going to go ahead and open this to our public hearing. So the public hearing on item 8A, which is the second public hearing for the 2025-2026 operating and capital project budgets, is now open. Do we have any public comments on this particular issue? Going once, going twice, third time's a charm. Well, with that, I see no further lights from our council members. Staff, did you need any further direction from us? I know we've been through various iterations and we've looked at trimming and trimming and trimming. Is there anything you're seeking tonight? Obviously, the goal and intent is to bring this back next week, but was there anything specific you may have wanted us to opine on?
I think it would be great to hear if any of the cuts, and we can bring back up the 2 slides if you'd like, if there's anything you wanted added back in there. Additionally, I think the COLA percentage, if you have a particular take on that, is helpful. Anything else? I think those are probably the most helpful things. Things that aren't in the budget, and the COLA would be the most helpful, so that we can try and get that closer to being wrapped up for you.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
I know you weren't first, but I haven't heard you speak yet, Mr. Milne.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, I've been a big supporter of COPA. 15,000, I know, means a lot to them. I would definitely be for putting that back in. I know the work that they do, whether it be economic, art, different stuff like that, is, I think, more than compensates for what they give back to the community. So I think that would be something that I'd be very adamant of putting back in our budget.
So before I get to Mr. Grimm or Perales, unless you have an opinion on that, I think we take this one by one. So let's address Mr. Milne's comment of COPA. Okay, so I hear in favor of what? Of removing or adding it back in? Adding back in. So there's 3. Ms. Perales?
I actually oppose adding that back in. I know something we've discussed continuously for several years, and as being part of COPA, we discuss sustainability, and they've not provided how they're keeping the organization continued without any support from the city. So I would decline. I would say no, keep it off.
Okay. I do realize I need to backtrack one quick second. I am going to close the public hearing since we have had our comments, and I apologize. So we are discussing still this COPA thing, and it sounds like we've got 3 in favor. We've got 1 opposed. I will tell you this, I sit on the LTAC, the Lodging Tax Advisory Commission. I know we're putting money in it, so I'd oppose putting it back into our budget. So that's a 3-2 in favor. Do we have any? We have Mr. Grimm and Perales. I know your lights are on, and I know you guys are both looking to speak to something else, but we do probably need to come to a head. So if either of you.
For me, I'm just going based on priority, so I'm going to speak to other things. So I think we should put that money towards some other stuff. So
is that a no?
That'd be a no for me based on what I believe we should put the money towards.
All right, Mr. Grimm.
I would be for new item, right? Because that was 4.
No. We got to close this one out. Uncomfortably.
Make it 5, Mr. Mayor.
What's a 5?
Opposed.
Okay, so that's a 3-4. 4-3 opposed. If you understand what I'm saying, I think you followed Mr. Lincoln. Okay. Do you have anything else to add with that, Mr. Milne, or was that your one item?
At the moment, it's been one item.
Okay. Let's go.
Mr. Mayor, could I
Yes.
clarify just for a second? I just want to make sure the public understands. So essentially what's happening is the council is reaching a consensus on these. You're not actually voting, and these aren't going to be anything. You're basically coming to a consensus so that you can give staff direction about what to come back for that you would then approve. So I just want to make sure that the public understands that we're not actually taking any final votes tonight, and these aren't binding.
Right. We're not amending any
Right.
budget at this point. It's
You
all
got it.
preliminary. So thank you for catching that. Mr. Prowse, I'm just like,
Thank you. Yeah, I think I did understand that too. So for me, it would just I think the $120,000 per year for the downtown area. That's something I think we should definitely hopefully bring back some money. If you go to the next page, just comes down to the police. I think the Citizens Academies are a great thing. They're a great community outreach tool. That dedicated traffic unit was really something I know this council wanted to see. So even if it's a officer or two, just so that we're making progress. And so I'll just leave it at that. To me, those are the big ticket items. Anything with the police department, and then the downtown abatement program. Thank you.
okay. Do we have any further discussion on either of those issues? Mr. Harpster.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of adding back in the downtown cleanup that was listed on the previous slide, and as well as adding back in the Citizen Academy. And
Hold on. Are we on Citizen Academy or were you on traffic? Sorry.
you mentioned a few.
Okay. Sorry. I'm just trying to keep this so I'm following. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah, so I agree with Mr. Prowse to add in the 120,000 for the downtown area abatement fund and adding back in the Citizen Academies. I think that was the only two.
Okay. Mr. Graham, are you
I
on
would
this one?
concur with those other two council members, Mr. Mayor, but I do have something
Yeah.
else. Yes, sir.
Ms. Barajas.
It's something else.
Okay.
I agree as well. But
Ms. Blaisdell, so you'd like to
Yes.
add in the 120 plus at that point we got 4 in favor of Mr. Lincoln and Ms. Buckley if you're tracking. So we'll presumably see those back in. Does that close this out for you sufficiently, Mr. Proud? Okay. So I'm just trying to make sure again. I'm trying to track this. Mr. Grimm, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under the Parks and Rec, to me, it's more of a public safety issue than even Parks and Rec, but the park gate closing service, especially as Chiawana. I've just heard from some of the residents down there what happens after dark, especially this time of year. And then also, I think it would be a huge help to the police department too, as far as less area of enforcement that, or would greatly hinder the enforcement needs if people can't drive down there. Certainly they can still walk or bike down there, but I think it was hinder the needs and just really kind of keep out people there from that time of night who typically aren't up to very good things. So I would be in favor if other council members would also be to put that back in that closing service. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have anyone opining on that?
I'll
Mr.
agree with Mr. Graham.
Mr. Milne.
I would agree as far as the gate closing.
I agree.
Okay, got more than 4, so let's look at getting that back in. Anything else, Mr. Graham? I see your lights off.
No, thank you. Thanks for asking, Mr. Mayor.
No problem, Ms. Barajas.
My concern is in regards to the domestic violence staff, contract staff. I appreciate that we're considering putting back the Citizens Academy. It's a great way for the community to be involved and engaged. However, we do have the need for contracted domestic violence staff at the station. It's in the public safety. It's in the need of the public safety. It's a venue. It's a way for our officers to have the services that are needed when you get that call. So I want to have this continued, be added back onto the budget if possible. I appreciate the support of council, but this is a service that we need for our community.
Ms. Blaisdell?
I just want to, ask what, out of the police department, if we were to put anything back, what's more of a priority in the police department's eyes versus is the domestic violence or the SVU detective more important than the Citizens Academy, like where, or the traffic emphasis, like what's priority to the police department? That's where I would want to know versus Lieutenant Pettyjohn. That would be a question for you.
To not put the lieutenant in the spot of answering for his boss's boss. I'd be happy to ask Chief Roski to just provide a quick email to you all so you can have that and we can continue the conversation on any of that detail. You can either personally reach out to me and give me your take once I send that to you. Maybe that would be the best, and then I can take that advice into what we bring forward next.
Yeah, I would just like to know how they prioritize what's
Sure.
the most important to them.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be hard pressed to cut DV services, but I'd also be interested in understanding where it falls. Mr. Harpster,
I was just going to express my support for what Councilman Barajas said.
Mr. Grimm.
I was just going to say, I would love to see that list from the chief also and hear their list of priorities. I think that's a great idea by Councilwoman Blaisdell. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so, I mean, at this point, I don't know that we have a necessary consensus. Certainly, there's a trend towards interest in reallocating the funds for DV, the domestic violence contract staff, but it also sounds like realistically what we really need is that list. If we can get the cost too associated, not just the priority, because there may be things where they're high priority, low cost, or vice versa. And so, any further discussion on this item? I think we've successfully unlimited. Oh, Ms. Bras.
Just one quick
Yeah.
question. If we are suspending the abandoned RV impound program, I'm not sure who to direct this to. I'm not gonna put you on the spot. What else is there to help eliminate or to help reduce the abandoned RVs on the streets?
I think you'd be hard pressed to get staff to provide an answer other than that's a tool that I think has been useful and has shown some positive results for neighborhoods that have been able to report either vehicles that have just been dead on the side of the road for a long period of time, or people that are illegally living in them at times as well without the power or water that they should have for basic human needs. So I think we'd be hard pressed to give you an answer other than it's been helpful.
All right, seeing no further lights, I think we've successfully clarified and muddied the water simultaneously. So we will look to your guidance for our guidance to walk through these. But I do think you have at least some clarity on some of those issues, hopefully. With that, thank you, Ms. Buckley. We'll move on to item B, which is, it's a public hearing in ordinance number 4737. I believe that's Valdivia annexation. That's Annex 2024-001. Mr. Raymond, it looks like we're going to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Honor, and council members. Good evening. On August 5th, 2024, council approved resolution 4476, accepting a notice of intent to commence annexation, and also signaled that the city may geographically modify the proposed annexation boundary. Next slide. On August 26th, the city received a petition, the actual petition, with the signatures representing the ownership of at least 60% of the area being considered for annexation. Next slide. The subject property being considered for annexation is comprised of approximately 0.16 acres and is located on the corner of Road 44 and West Argent Road. Next slide, please. The property is currently zoned by the county as RS20. The future land use designation, according to the city's comprehensive land use map, is commercial. And as such, staff requests that the city council conduct a public hearing, consider any public testimony, the agenda report, of course, and request that you adopt ordinance 4737 approving the Valdivia annexation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from council before I open this public hearing? Seeing no lights, the public hearing on ordinance number 4737 for the Valdivia annexation is now open. Do we have any comments on this issue? Yes, sir. Again, state your name and county residence, please. And push the button at the bottom of the base. You'll see the light. You're on.
I'm Jeff Daniels, live in Franklin County, right at the corner of, well, it's actually 4205 West Argent. My concern would be recently when they built the gas station, which I don't have a problem with, but they restriped the road in front of our house and added a merge lane, which doesn't show on this map. But when they did that, they blocked part of our driveway. It used to be like a parking lane along with a drive lane. Well, now the park lane is gone, so we have to be very, very careful and watch our rear view mirrors to make sure we don't get rear-ended. And there's been at least twice that I've almost been rear-ended, and I think they did this 2 months ago. We were out of town when they did it. I've been hit 2 or 3 times before they did this. One of them was by a Ben Franklin bus. My wife's been hit. My son's been hit. So it is a deep concern of what they do with the traffic in that area. The other concern we have is with law enforcement. If they take that Argent and Argent Place into the city, the confusion comes in dispatch. They never know which, whether it be county or be city. We've had to explain to the dispatch before that we're asking for the county to come. Not saying the city won't come. If they're available, they'll come. But if there's an emergency, it's kind of a toss up to 22 who's going to come, because they don't know which one we're in. And it's going to be more confusing if that road is actually converted into the city, because then we're just 4 or 5 lots there that are surrounded by all city that we're actually in the county. That would be our concern, is, law enforcement, which they've been really good about communicating and stuff with us. I don't have a problem with them with that. It's just road safety would be our biggest concern on that road. I happen to own the 4204 behind us also, so we actually cut a road between the 2 properties where we don't have to technically go out on 44. So we use that, or out onto Argent, we use that quite a bit, which makes it a lot safer for us. But there's still times where, for whatever reason, we still come down Argent and turn into our driveway. But doing so, we do have to watch, and I'm concerned about visitors and stuff coming in, not watching and not knowing the situation of what's going on. That's pretty much it.
Thank you. I appreciate you raising that concern to us. Do we have any additional public comment? No.
I'm Amanda Daniels. I'm his daughter-in-law. So we live, he was saying directly behind, which is on Argent Place. And the biggest thing when we first moved in was there's no speed limit, but it is 25. No one drives 25. So when dark hits, it's a racetrack. We have no lights. So if that's going to be city limits, are we going to have a sidewalk? Are we going to have lights? And then pulling out of Argent Place onto 44 is horrible since they put the gas station in. I mean, it was bad to begin with, but now pulling out, we have to wait for the people coming down 44 and watch for the people turning off of Argent going up, because of the fact that they come around that corner so fast that I don't even think they slow. So they're coming off going, 45 and hitting a 35, which then changes to 25. Like, I have no clue why that section is still 35, but the biggest section, I don't know why I even turn that way, but I tend to go that way because my daughter goes to McLaughlin, so we go that way, but I don't know what they're going to do about that as a problem. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, I'm following. I think we all are following.
Okay. I mean, that'd be like my biggest fear. I mean, we have police department that sits on there quite a bit, but as of right now, is it still county right now? So they don't do anything unless the sheriff shows up and does something about people driving up and down that. So I guess that's my only comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any additional public comment? Go ahead, sir. Might as well, you're here.
So I live at 4120 West Argent. They're my neighbors, but pretty much the same complaint as that corner, 44 and Argent. When they restriped that, they screwed it up because I got horses and trying to make that corner, I'm taking up their turn lane just to get onto 44 or Argent Place. So that, yeah, I don't know. Something needs to be done different with the road. What? I don't know, but something. And I guess that's my biggest complaint.
Thank you. It's okay, you can leave the mic on, we'll get it shut off. Any additional public comment on this issue? Going once? Going twice? Third time? We'll close the public hearing. I do see Mr. Prowlis, you've got your light on.
Yeah, I was going to make a quick
Yeah, we'll
comment.
just circle back to council and then we can have Mr. Miller.
I wish Sarah was here, but I live in that district. I'm the district. I live on off Road 44 on Hilltop. But that's phase 4 of the Argent Road urban improvements. But according to the website, we're not going to look to start that until about 2028. So eventually it's going to be 3 lanes with a turn lane, sidewalks, and all that stuff. But correct, on Argent, from Road 36 to Road 44. So that's a project in the works. So, but I do share your frustrations with but this is, we do things in phases. And so I just want to let you know, yeah, things are going to be done. Hopefully, what was that? I would assume there'd be lights, this is right here, enhancing illumination.
So I do apologize.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. We can either bring you back up to the mic, but the public hearing's been closed. Typically, we don't reopen for conversation. So I'll be honest, I'd prefer that you not engage. I apologize. So yeah, no, I mean, you're certainly welcome to provide any detail.
Maybe I'll just stop by.
Yeah,
I'll
I
stop
think it
by and
best
talk
we
to you guys.
not. Okay, Ms. Blaisdell.
The only comment that I was gonna make is, I go and go get morning coffee at Lifeline at the gas station pretty much every morning. And I think part of the speeding issue that maybe Adam wants to look into a little bit, when on the newer vehicles, it picks up the speed limit of 70 miles an hour when you're on the highway, not when you're on Argent. And the other day, there was a police officer behind me, and of course I'm not going 70, but you really don't know what the speed limit is there. So, just to kind of put it out there, that may be the confusion why the public is speeding down Argent. And it's between the road that we're talking, 44 to 40.
Mr. Harpster.
Yeah, question for Mr. Raymond. The area that the applicant requested to be annexed is only 0.16 acres. Have they discussed with staff at all vacating that? Looks like there's a right-of-way dedication for future Argent Place that's probably unnecessary. Has that been discussed at all?
Not that I'm aware of at this point.
Do you know what their plans are? That's just such a difficult piece.
It is a difficult piece, which makes its potential limited, obviously, but I'm not aware of what their immediate plans are.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any further discussion here? Seeing none, Mr. Milne, you got a motion for us?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4737 relating to annexation and annexing certain real property to the city of Pasco and further authorize publication by summary only.
Second.
Got a motion and a second by Ms. Blaisdell. Ms. Clerk, do a roll call.
All right. Councilmember Blaisdell,
Yes.
Grimm,
Yes.
Harpster,
Yes.
Prowess,
No.
Barajas,
Yes.
Milne,
No.
and Serrano.
Yes.
So that's 5-2 and it passes.
And so now that it's been annexed, I think as we understand the project down the road, we'll figure out what the appropriate uses and conditions are once we know that.
Later in this evening's meeting, you'll be taking on the zoning designation.
Perfect. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to item C, which is a public hearing and ordinance number 4738, the Shumway Taylor Flats Road annexation. Mr. Harpster,
Yep, I'm going to recuse myself from this item.
we'll grab you when we're done. With that, Mr. Raymond.
Thank you very much. Again, on August 5th, 2024, the city approved resolution 4477 with the notice of intent to commence annexation proceedings for the Shumway annexation, providing a determination on the boundary to be annexed as well, with no specific recommendation to expand the boundary. The next slide. The petition with the legally required signatures representing at least 60% of the value of the property be considered for annexation is dated August 15th, 2024. Next slide. The property up for annexation consideration this evening is a triangular piece shaped parcel and has approximately 14.94 acres and is located just north of Dent Road between Columbia River Road and Taylor Flats Road. Next slide. The property is currently zoned by the county as AP20, and the future land use designation according to the city's comprehensive plan land use map is commercial also. Staff requests that the city council conduct a public hearing, consider any public testimony, and of course the agenda report, and adopt ordinance 4738 approving the Shumway Taylor Flats annexation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond. Do we have any comments by council before we open this to public hearing? Mr. Prowse.
How's this development going to be serviced with water, sewer? Is it septic still? I mean, it's undeveloped. I take that, but
Yeah, I think utilities will be extended to the site, to serve the site.
from like across the way.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have the utility map in front of me, so I'm not sure the exact route.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, we are going to open the public hearing for ordinance number 4738, the Shumway Taylor Flats Road annexation. So the public hearing is open. Do we have any comments on this issue? Going once? Going twice? Third call? Hearing no public comments, we will close the public hearing. Do we have any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, Mr. Milne.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4738 relating to the annexation and annexing certain real property to the city of Pasco and further authorize publication by summary only.
Second.
Got a motion and a second? Miss Debbie, do you mind calling roll on
Yes.
this one?
Councilmember Grimm,
Yes.
Councilmember Perales,
No.
Barajas,
Yes.
Blaisdell,
Yes.
Milne,
Yes.
and Serrano.
Yes.
And it passes 5-1.
5-1 with Mr. Harpster recused. If you can go grab him. With that, we'll move on to item number 9, which is ordinances and resolutions not relating to hearings. We have item A, ordinance number 4739, Valdivia zoning determination of annexed property, that's ZD 2024001. We're going to kick you off, Mr. Ferguson, first.
That'd be great. Thank you, Your Honor. So this is a quasi-judicial hearing or proceeding to render a final decision on the materials presented. It's defined as a proceeding in which the council defines the legal rights, duties, privileges, and of the specific parties in a hearing, proceeding, or other contested matter. The appearance of fairness doctrine applies. The hearing must be fair in 3 respects: form, substance, and appearance. All council members should consider whether they have any potential conflicts as follows. A demonstrated bias for or against any of the parties. B, any direct or indirect financial interest in the outcome of the proceeding which would affect the council members personally. C, whether there has been any prejudgment of the issues prior to hearing the facts. D, whether there has been any ex parte contact with anyone other than staff prior to this hearing. And finally, E, any other conflict a council member believes would prevent them from hearing this matter fairly and impartially. If any council member has any of these concerns or disclosures, now would be the time to make those known. Hearing none, are there any members of the public seeking to disqualify a member of council from participating in these proceedings? Seeing none, please proceed.
All right, I'll kick it to you, Mr. Raymond.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. And as I mentioned just moments ago, the City Council approved 4737, annexing the subject property, and we now have the opportunity to assign appropriate zoning designation, which substantially informs staff, the City Council, and the community what can and cannot generally take place on the property. Next slide, please. As mentioned during the annexation discussion, the property is currently zoned RS20 by the county. Next slide. And the city has designated the property commercial according to the city's comprehensive land use map. As such, staff finds that C1 retail business zoning designation is appropriate for the site after consideration of the criteria for review as adopted by the Pasco, within the Pasco Municipal Code. On October 9th, 2024, the hearing examiner held a public hearing to consider C1 retail business zoning for the Valdivia annexation as depicted on the proposed zoning map. Following the conduct of the hearing examiner ultimately recommended the City Council approved the C1 zoning. As such, staff requested the City Council adopt Ordinance 4739, assigning C1 retail business zoning to the subject property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond. Do we have any discussion on this issue? Seeing none, Mr. Milne.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4739, assigning C1 resident retail business district to the Valdivia annexation area as recommended by the hearing examiner and further authorized publication by summary only.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Milne and a second by Ms. Blaisdell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Passes unanimously. With that, we'll move on to item B, which is ordinance number 4740. This is Shumway zoning, determination of annex property, ZD 2024-002. Mr. Harpster.
I'm going to recuse myself from this one as well.
And then back to you, Mr. Ferguson. You want to go back through?
I'll give you the abbreviated version since we went through that first one so fast. So this is a quasi-judicial matter. It is the appearance of fairness doctrine applies and has to be fair in three respects: form, substance, and appearance. Council members should consider if they have any potential conflicts of a demonstrated bias for or against the parties, direct or indirect financial interest, any prejudgment of the issues, whether there has been any ex parte contact with anyone other than staff, and finally whether they believe any council member believes they have any conflict which would prevent them from hearing the matter fairly and impartially. Any council members having these concerns, now would be the time to make those known. Seeing none, are there any members of the public seeking to disqualify a member of council from participating in the proceedings? Again, seeing none.
All right, back to you, Mr. Raymond.
Thank you very much. Again, the City Council just moments ago approved an ordinance annexing the subject property. And again, we now have the opportunity to assign the appropriate zoning designation. Next slide. As mentioned during the annexation discussion, the property is currently zoned AP20 by the county. And as luck would have it, the city has designated the property commercial according to the city's comp plan land use map. As such, staff finds that C3 general business zoning is appropriate in consideration of the city's municipal code criteria for review. Next slide, please. On October 9th, 2024, the hearing examiner held a public hearing to consider C3 general business zoning for the Shumway Taylor Flats annexation area as depicted on the proposed zoning map. Following the conduct of the hearing examiner ultimately recommended the City Council approve the proposed C3 zoning. As such, staff requests the City Council adopt Ordinance 4740, assigning C3 general business zoning to the subject property. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion on this item? Mr. Prowse?
Do you know what type of projects are gonna be happening at this site?
I'm not aware of the specific projects yet.
Okay, so then, have we considered what the impacts are gonna be to the surrounding area if we don't really know? Is that
Yeah.
really not a consideration at this time, I guess?
No, it is under consideration. You look at all these matters when you're doing your comprehensive land use designations and predetermining to the extent that you possibly can at that point what the impacts possibly will be. When a specific development proposal is brought forth, of course, we'll be able to fine tune the exact impacts and can determine the best course of action at that point.
Cause that's kind of really dangerous, like why I've been down that way and then people are speeding and stuff. That's kind of within our city limits right there. Have we looked into anything that's gonna be fixed there?
Well, again, once we get a better sense of the specific project and have an idea of what the traffic counts will be generated from the site, probably we'll have traffic impact analysis prepared and reviewed by staff at that point. So certainly it'll be an item of awareness at that time.
So to my left, that RT, that's not city, that's county, right? Across the way? Or is that green area city? Cause I see like the blue city limits.
I don't believe that is city yet.
Oh, okay. So essentially, it probably could be like coordination between the county and city for something there, like a roundabout or something.
Again, it'll really depend on the specific development proposal, the traffic counts, and what the TIA might recommend.
Okay, appreciate it, sir.
Any further discussion? Mr. Grimm?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I was just looking at the map, and I think to clarify what Mr. Perales is saying is I do see how the county limits do wrap that in there, coming down Columbia River Road, and then down across at Dent Road. So it does look like it's definitely within the city limits the way the blue cuts across there. And I echo a lot of Councilman Perales' concerned about that intersection, and as that gets developed, something probably really needs to get done there. But with the Douglas Fruit right across the street in that industrial county land there, whatever, I think commercial would be a really good fit for that corner though, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further lights, Mr. Milne?
Thank you. I move to adopt ordinance number 4740, assigning C3 General Business District to the Shumway Annexation Area and as recommended by the hearing examiner, and further authorize publication by summary only.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Milne, second by Ms. Blaisdell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. And if you'll get Mr. Harpster. Move on to item number, letter C, which is ordinances number 4741 and 4742, creation of tax increment financing or TIF funds in the Pasco Municipal Code, chapters 3.245 and 3.250. Ms. Buckley.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council members. We have a series of ordinance that we're requesting would result in the creation of new funds, meaning, as we've talked, there's the general fund and special revenue funds and the utility funds. So this is, I know the word, I have a hard time enunciating well, funds to record accounting entries, including revenue and expenses. Currently, in the case of all these requests, and as I walk through them, I'll explain better what for each one, what each request or new fund would be for. But currently, all of them are recording revenues and related expenses in the general fund, and we desire to make separate accounting funds to provide for a more distinct and transparent and easily reported and reviewed activity related to the dollars that we receive and then how those dollars are spent. So this ordinance, the first one is for the tax increment area in the Broadmoor area, both a debt service fund and then also a capital improvement fund for bond proceeds for those transportation projects that are taking place and have recently gotten underway. So we'd like a debt service fund to pay back the principal and interest on those bond proceeds that we received this year, and then another fund to record include the bond proceeds and subsequent spending on construction projects. And we would not make the dollar changes or adjustments this year. We'll wait to close the year. We're asking to get the funds in place, the accounting funds created, so that as we close next year, we can make accounting entries and get all the right budgetary changes in the new funds and out to move that representative revenues and expenses out of the general fund and into those special funds to account for the activity. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Harpster.
Yeah, this all makes sense to me, but what doesn't make sense is why it's taken so long to do this. I mean, this was set up 2 years ago, and it's just now being brought forward.
It really is something that we've just got the dollar on the dollar side, the incoming money side. We just issued those bond proceeds, or we've received those bond proceeds recently, and so now that we have them, deciding to, have a good way to manage that. And typically we don't set up a special fund to track bond proceeds, but as the size of this as large and the volume of projects is many, we wanted to make it very distinct and unique, so it would be easy to be seen and the process very clear. And it's more of I would like to say that we thought of doing it sooner, but we didn't. We've just talked about it this year and dealt with other things, and now before the year closed, we want to make sure to come and ask for that approval.
So to state it back to you then, it wasn't set up the correct way in the beginning because there were no funds coming in?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
What I understood was it wasn't set up this way because there were no funds coming in at that time. Now that there'll be funds coming in, we should set it up the correct way.
Yeah, we could leave it in the general fund. It's not incorrect for it to be in the general fund, but
Well, best practice and
we would like to make a change so that it's more transparent, easier to know what the activity is.
Okay, and then a follow-up to that, we've been talking about the budget for 3 months. Why wasn't this introduced 3 months ago in preparation for all the discussions that we've had?
Most likely, my best answer is just a volume of work to be done and trying to make sure we get everything done and make changes. And one thing I will add to that is it's hard to make those changes kind of on the fly. We want to make sure that we think it through really carefully and get the full year's worth of activity moved at one time. So I think you'll recall that when we were looking at the different general fund departments, from year to year, sometimes we would move people from one department to another and going back and trying to kind of capture all the pieces and parts. If they didn't all move together, it's pretty challenging, and it ends up making the picture not as clear as we'd like it to be. So this is our attempt to make sure that we capture all the information, get it all moved, and have everything prepared.
Which is great, but as noted in the staff report, this amendment's not going to take place until into next year, or already into the new budget.
Correct, yes, and I would love to say that we had made a change earlier, and that's just not what has happened. So we're trying to do that now.
Okay. I guess, why wasn't, and this, kind of applies to all of these coming up next, why wasn't this the practice to begin with, instead of
I-
Now that we're down the
Yeah,
road and.
I can't answer that. I think that quite a few of these, we've been getting the revenues for many years, and it just was not at that point in time in people's visions to have that as an opportunity or a way of recording the activity. And so now, as we've been working through, the budget this year and reporting items to council, we've identified at a staff level that this would be a good change that would provide good information both to the different departments in the city, city manager's office, and council. And so we'd like to make that change now.
Councilmember Harpster, this is Richa Sigdel, and I would also like to add that whenever we make these changes and we move things around, it also creates a less clear financial picture. So we always want to be mindful before we create new funds for activities, not necessarily for just the tax increment financing fund, but that is a pretty unique one that the city has had. It's one of the first TIF fund or TIF activity that the city has had, and it has its own nuances than other bond issuances that has a public-private partnership related to it. So it behooves the city, given that we have that partnership in place, which was signed this summer, to keep the funds separate, keep the debt service separate, so that provides a little bit clarity. But in terms of some of the other funds that are also going to be in front of you for creation, what I can tell you is that it makes it in future years comparisons difficult, because you will see that this year or this biennium you have permitting fees and development fees included within the general fund, but we're recommending in future that we take them out. So preparing a budget this year in pretty difficult circumstances, and then adding all of these additional elements to it was, we felt like it would create more confusion than help.
I think there's more confusion now. We should have started from the correct place and, 6 months ago brought all these changes to us so they would have a cleaner picture. Now we're going to go into the new biennium budget and start off with a bunch of amendments. And so just not a fan of it. What are we doing to ensure this doesn't happen again when new funds are created down the road?
Well, we haven't discussed that, to be honest with you. I mean, I think that every time we have a new revenue source, what we'll need to do is look at the expected volume of revenue. We kind of want to be very careful of not making so many funds that it makes reporting and making sure that things are coded correctly confusing and challenging. And so every time moving forward that we have a new source of revenue, we're going to need to evaluate, the volume of revenue we expect and any associated revenue uses of that funding, and see kind of a cost-benefit analysis of is it worthwhile adding another fund? There is a complexity that comes with having more and more funds that we want to avoid. We want to make sure we're reporting things clearly and with a simple, easy to understand purpose for the revenue that we receive, because like I said before, all this revenue was not incorrectly reported in the general fund. It's just that they are at the volume now that we see that, and we do have some experience to see that it would be beneficial to have them separated.
Right,
So-
and I misspoke when I said incorrect. It's just the staff report said best practice is doing it this way. And so instead of saying why were we doing it the correct way, why weren't we following best practices? A better way to rephrase my question. What I would love for us to do, and I think it's doable, is to get these funds set up, the amendments made before we even pass the budget. I mean, it seems reasonable. It's only November 18th. Is that something we can get done in time?
It'd be very challenging in a week, because in a week to make sure that we make all the right.
Well,
we
we've
have
got
set
two
up all
more
the
regular meetings, so
correct.
up to 3
I
or 4
would-
weeks from now.
Yes, my concern is rushing and
not making the correct amendments. And the other thing that is good that happens as part of making the adjustments at the beginning of next year is we'll have a full picture of what year-end looks like, all the revenues and expenditures. It will help us get a little more activity and trend to make the budget amendments where there might be some variability from year to year, and make sure that those amendments are appropriate. We can certainly, I've not considered that, and I would need to go, tomorrow and look and see what steps would need to be taken to do it well.
And then last question, in a follow-up to one of the items you mentioned a moment ago, when you are looking at different funds and deciding, whether we should follow the best practice or not, is there kind of a trigger for the amount of those funds that are coming in? Because, there's a huge difference between the TIF fund and the Affordable Housing Fund. Really big difference in the revenues that are going to come in. So is there a trigger point, or is it kind of on a case-by-case basis, or what kind of analysis would you guys go through?
I think, well, typically we make a new fund when we have like a special revenue where we can only spend the dollars for a specific purpose. And that's why this is kind of a gray area a little bit, where it is general fund purposed type of revenue. But now, looking at the revenue that comes in and wanting, it's really more of a transparency and ease of reporting for everyone to see, council, city staff, the public. We haven't identified a tipping point. I think we just need to be very mindful of when there's a new revenue source, or we have a growing revenue source even. What is a way that we can make sure we're providing good information and reports that are meaningful to all the users. So I don't know if that answers your question well. I think it's something we need to be cautious to evaluate. And then echoing Mrs. Sigdel's comment, there is a little, unfortunately, if we don't start when we first start, when new revenues are initially received, that comparability from year to year, when we change, is hard to see. Like, for example, the criminal justice sales tax has always been reported in the general fund. As we now move it somewhere else, that will be really good moving forward. People can see it distinct from other general fund revenues and all the expenses that are being supported by that revenue that comes in. So that will be a good change. But if we do some comparative looking back kind of reports from 2024 to 2025, there's going to be what would seemingly look like a gap of revenue, or a big decrease in the general fund, and an increase because it has moved to this new fund. So I think our best bet, and to your point, is that we want to be cautious and evaluate very carefully when we get new revenues, so we can start in the most authentic, the word escapes me, but the best reporting mechanism for the future, for the life of the revenue.
I believe that's all my questions for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no further lights, Mr. Milne, do we have a motion?
Yes, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4741, establishing a debt service fund for the tax increment funding, TIF, bond debt service fund, and creating a new chapter 3.245 TIF bond debt service fund in the Pasco Municipal Code, and further authorized publication by summary only.
I think we have.
I move to adopt ordinance number 4742.
No, we need to do them separately. Yeah. Yeah, we want to do them. We're going to do them separately. So, sorry, I thought I was going to hear a second there. Do we have a second on that one?
Second.
Okay, we got a second by Ms. Bras. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Now to the second motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4742, establishing a capital improvement fund for the Broadmoor tax increment financing area, and creating a new chapter 3.250 TIF Capital Construction Fund in the Pasco Municipal Code and further authorize publication by summary only.
Get a motion by Mr. Milne, a second by Ms. Barajas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, passed unanimously. And we have, I've been asked, let's do a 5-minute break. It's 8:30, so, or 4 and whatever. We'll be back at 8:35. We'll be right back. Thank you. So it is 8:35. We are back from our recess here, and it is we're moving on to item 9D as in Delta for those following along. It's wow. Ordinance number 4743, creation of development fee fund in Pasco Municipal Code, section 3.255. Ms. Buck.
Thank you again. This is the next fund that we're interested in opening. I'm looking for council approval to account for development fee revenues and associated expenses. And same information as we discussed before. Want to move that accounting from the general fund into its own fund, just for more transparency and better reporting.
With that, do we have any questions or comments on this issue? Seeing none, Mr. Milne.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4743, establishing an enterprise fund for revenues and expenditures related to building permitting and inspections activities and creating a new chapter 3.255 development fee fund in the Pasco Municipal Code and further authorize publication by summary only.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Milne, second by Ms. Blaisdell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. That moves us along to item E, which is ordinance number 4744, creation of public safety special revenue fund in the Pasco Municipal Code, chapter 3.260. It says chapter 3.260 twice, but I think we're just gonna read it the once. So with that, Ms. Buckley.
Thank you. I can see the confusion. This new fund would account for public safety revenue tied to sales tax that was voter approved, including that was for the value of 0.3%, and so it would segregate that revenue source and the receipt of it and tie the related expenses for accounting purposes and reporting.
Thank you, Mr. Prowse. Oh, okay. Any questions or comments of staff? Seeing none, Mr. Milne.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4744, establishing a special revenue fund for the public safety tax fund and creating a new chapter 3.260 public safety tax fund in the Pasco Municipal Code and further authorized publication by summary only.
Second.
We've got a motion by Mr. Milne, a second by Ms. Blaisdell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. That moves us along to item F, which is ordinance number 4745, creation of affordable housing revenue special fund in Pasco Municipal Code, chapter 3.265. Ms. Buckley.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council members. This is our final request for a new fund to account for the affordable housing revenue and related spending. Currently, we've not spent any of these funds, so this is a place where we will kind of be getting more into the beginning stages of using the revenue and recording activities. So please, that will help us and we'll conclude our requests.
Thank you, Ms. Buckley.
Thank
Do we have any questions or comments from council? Mr. Prowse?
Yes. This is
Okay.
I have an
Okay.
actual question.
Got a real light?
Appreciate it. So is this in regards to that special sales tax that we set aside?
Yes,
So we haven't done anything with that money yet?
not yet.
Okay.
So-
We're just trying to just put a whole bunch away for a special project? Or?
Yes, I would love to say I could recite. I think that, I know the ordinance has the purpose the revenues can be used for, but if I recall correctly, those items, to do them meaningfully, you needed a fair amount of money to be able to make a difference and use the funds, so we've just been building.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, Mr. Milne.
Thank you. I move to adopt ordinance number 4745, establish a special revenue fund for the Affordable Housing Tax Fund and create a new chapter 3.265 Affordable Housing Tax Fund in the Pasco Municipal Code and further authorize publication by summary only.
Motion by Milne, second by Ms. Barajas. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that too passes unanimously. We're gonna have item G, which is resolution number 4531, setting a date to consider a notice of intent to commence annexation proceedings for Wright and Big Sky Developers Glacier Park Convention Drive Annexation, ANX 2024-003. Mr. Harpster?
Yep, I'll recuse myself from this item as well tonight.
All right. We'll either leave you or get you later. Mr. Raymond?
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I'm convinced by the end of all these annexations, it'll become old hat and we'll be really good at it. So just bear with me. This evening is the first step in a multi-step annexation process. This is just the very beginning. Earlier in the meeting, we were essentially completing a couple of annexations. And again, we're going to back up a little bit and start at the very beginning of a new annexation process for this project. Big Sky Developers LLC and Steve and Vicky Wright have filed a notice of intent to petition the city of Pasco to annex the subject property. Sufficient signatures to move the project forward for consideration. In other words, we have the signatures from owners of at least the minimum of 10% representing the value of the property being considered. We've received these signatures. In this case, we actually have 100%, so it's pretty straightforward. Next slide, please. The property under consideration is located south of Cow Trail Road and north of Burns Road and constitutes approximately 6.2 acres. The property is within the city's urban growth area and has a designation of low-density residential. Next slide, please. The next available date for a public meeting to consider the notice of intent is Monday, December 2nd, 2024. And staff requests that the City Council adopt Resolution 4531, setting the date of a public meeting for December 2nd, 2024, at 7 p.m. to officially consider the notice of intent to annex. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond. Do we have any, Mr. Grimm?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one, I just noticed a typo in the motion at the very bottom. It says Kai Trial Road. And just for the sake of clarification, that should be Trail Road, I'm pretty certain. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Mr. Prowlis?
Thank you. This is a serious question, though. Do we have any influence over the names of these subdivisions? Does the applicant come and this is what I want to call my subdivision?
Well, this is actually an annexation, and sometimes we will just give it a name depending on who the applicant is or the geographic location of the property. It's not a formal name. Subdivisions, I think the applicants actually established the name.
So Glacier Park is the name?
Correct.
Correct? Okay. Yeah, because I saw one last week, like Raven's Place. I was just like, well, do we have some history behind? I don't know. I just thought maybe if we had some influence over some of the names, it'd be a little bit better. But anyways, that was my question.
Do we have any further questions or comments, staff? Seeing none, Mr. Milne.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 4531, setting 7 p.m. December 2nd, 2024, as the time and date for a public meeting with the initiators to consider the Wright and Big Sky Developers Glacier Park Convention Drive notice of intent to commerce annexation of property located northwest of the intersection of Burns and Convention Drive and south of Cow Trail Road.
Second.
Get a motion by Mr. Milne, a second by Ms. Blaisdell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, pass unanimously with 6-0 because Mr. Harpster. You can grab him. And that moves us on to item H, which is resolution number 4532. Approval of Washington State Department of Revenue Agreement for Tourism Promotion Area Fees Collection. Ms. Pashon.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the item before you tonight is an agreement with the Washington State Department of Revenue for a long-term agreement for the state to administer the Tourism Promotion Area, TPA, fees for the city of Pasco. Just a little history. The Tri-Cities Regional Hotel and Motel Commission created the TPA in 2004. In 2023, we were made aware that Our TPA, as well as others throughout the state, received a non-compliance with the state related to its TPA codes. In December of 2023, a temporary agreement was executed with the Department of Revenue to allow time to pursue either a legislative change or to update the city's code. A legislative change was successful this legislative session, and no PMC changes are necessary. However, a new agreement is needed to continue the TPA collection with the Department of Revenue. So that is what is before you tonight, and staff recommends its approval.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Bashan. Do we have any questions or comments of staff from council? Seeing none, Mr. Milne.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 4532, authorizing the city manager to assign and execute an agreement for the state administration of the tourism promotion area fees between the city of Pasco and the Washington State Department of Revenue.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Milne, second by Ms. Blaisdell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. That moves us along to item number 10, which is unfinished business, and there is none. That brings us to item number 11, new business. Mr. Lincoln, I'm just...
New business.
Okay,
Sorry.
wow, all right. Number 12, miscellaneous discussion. Sorry.
I just didn't want to jump the gun. Just a couple things of note. First, just wanted to mention that the state of the city for the Tri-Cities, the Quad Cities, Mayor Gary would appreciate, I'm sure, is on Wednesday at 11:30 at the Pasco Red Lion. It'll be primarily a video format, and the mayors will have a few minutes to, I don't know, riff or give their updates as well. I'm sure it'll be a very well attended event. And then Ms. Buckley also had a quick update, I think, on some of the specifics of the audit results.
Thank you very much. Yes, we did have our exit conference related to our accountability audit today, and we're happy to have the 3 council members able to attend. The accountability audit happens every year, and the purpose of the audit is to review activity to obtain evidence about the city's use of public resources and make sure that we are in compliance with state laws and resolutions, as well as our internal city policies and procedures, and following those steps that our city outlined. And then also review the sufficiency of our internal controls to make sure that they are sufficient to ensure compliance and safeguard resources. And in this audit, the state auditor's office focused on procurement for public works and professional services, general disbursements that occur through our accounts payable process, the use of tourism promotion restricted funding, and compliance with public works projects change orders and contracts, specifically the HAPO Center interlocal agreement, compliance with state grants, and making sure that the appropriate allowable use was followed and the right rules were followed for making changes to grant funds allocation. And finally, as they always do, they look at the Open Public Meetings Act and compliance with that act, including minutes and meeting happenings and then executive session requirements, that those were followed. They also looked at our self-insurance to make sure that it was being well orchestrated and that the proper people were covered. And then finally, just an overall look at financial condition of the city, making sure that there were no indications of financial distress. And the result was that the city complied with applicable state laws and regulations and our own policies and procedures, and that there were adequate internal controls to safeguard public resources, and that we were being good stewards of the finances. And so there was one recommendation that SAO provided. It's just a management letter. It's not part of our audit. It's just to help us make changes or handle things a little differently going forward, and that was related to our interlocal agreement with related to the HAPO Center operations and any subsidy that the city provides. And so we were going to work on making that amendment. Their recommendation was to request or receive from Franklin County more detailed reporting on revenues and expenditures to make sure that the subsidy was used for allowable resources. So that's something we'll be working on, but just wanted to provide that quick update. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from staff, Mr. Lincoln? Okay, thank you. Ms. Blaisdell.
I just want to mention Reese Across America one more time. We're at 206 purchased as of probably 45 minutes ago. So thank you for everyone that has purchased them. The deadline is November 27th.
And what's our maximum? 1,000?
We need 1,000.
And that would, for anyone that's not followed this would cover all the graves of any of the individuals lost in service, correct? At the City View Cemetery. So this is something that, to the extent that we can get participation from the community, business owners, anyone, certainly a worthy cause of supporting. Anything else, Mr. Harpster?
Yeah, looking for an update on, I know Maria's online, Broadmoor 82 interchange and progress on that.
Good evening. I am happy to provide an update. That project continues to advance and we are scheduled to be completed by the end of the year. I believe you will be seeing a change order before the end of the year with some items for that project. But generally speaking, it continues to advance.
And then, well, I've got you. Sylvester Street improvements. Looks like most of it's completed except for the area 14th and Sylvester on the southwest side near the old 7-Eleven. Do you know when that's anticipated to be finished? Seems like that one portion of that intersection has been ongoing for quite some time.
Yes, that component is scheduled to occur the week of December 13th.
Thanks. And then, for whomever may know the answer, Dairy Gold, we know progress on that when they're looking to be completed.
I'm not sure what their estimated completion date is. I can get back to you.
Okay. That's all I got. Thanks.
All righty. Seeing no further lights, we will move on to item 13, everybody's favorite part, executive session, unlisted. With that, moves us on to item 14, which is our real favorite part, which is adjournment. Thank you for being with us tonight. We are now adjourned.